Now it is the time for the most prestigious function of the Silver Jubilee year celebration, that is the Silver Jubilee oration, for which we are waiting since long. It is given to none other than our founder president, Dr. Rama Vaidya Madam. For this, I invite Dr. Jignesh Shah to chair the session and invite Dr. Rama Madam for her oration.
Good afternoon, friends. On behalf of Indian Menopause Society, I welcome you all to today's first Silver Jubilee oration as we are celebrating the Silver Jubilee year 2020. The idea of starting Silver Jubilee year oration was clicked at the time of installation at Bangalore. But at that time, it was in my mind that either we will keep it at Mumbai at the time of celebrating Foundation Day or at the time of midterm GCM at Surat in the month of August along with zonal conference and governing council meeting. But as you all know, because of the prevailing situations, it was not possible as Corona has changed everything. So we decided to go for virtual digital oration and we decided to honor our Silver Jubilee oration by allotting it to none other than our founder president, Madam Rama Vaidya, and I am very happy to say that everyone present in the GCM welcomed that idea. I think this digital virtual oration will be attracting more viewers, more attendees to take advantage of the knowledge and expertise of our founder president at their own place with more ease and comfort. I propose that every year we should plan this Silver Jubilee oration on virtual platform only so as to reach more and more members. I can say Corona is not all the way bad. It has shown us many ways like digital platform is one of it besides importance of health and nutrition. So friends, let us welcome our founder president, Dr. Rama Vaidya, a motherly lady, a mentor to many, including me. Even at present, she is ready with new innovative ideas, working tirelessly along with her husband, Sir Ashok Vaidya, in research and always accessible whenever we call her. She is always there to guide us, to advise us. And I must say that before oath, I taken as president, I started my year with her blessings. Many things are to be learned from her. So, madam, a very welcome to you. Please honor and justify our first oration. Topic is chronobiology of menopause, transitional impact on postmenopausal health. So, madam, the screen is yours.
Thanks. Dear friends, I normally, when a session lasts longer, tell everybody to take a deep breath and just stretch. Because I don't know how Rashmi, Anita, Jignesh Bhai, and all of you, Meeta, Sunila, and others are managing. I think that on one hand, I'm extremely happy to see that such a program, I've never seen ever such a celebration. And congratulations to all of you, but mainly to Dr. Jignesh Bhai, Dr. Anita Shah, Dr. Rashmi, Dr. Meeta, Dr. Sunila, and many other names come. But I may not be able to cover because otherwise I will not be able to give this oration. So if you take a deep breath and will say Om with me, I'll be very happy. Thank you. Recently, Dr. Vaidya and I read about Mandukya Upanishad and the significance of Om, and I realized I never ever knew this. So it's never late to learn. So as I say that on one hand, I've been extremely happy. On the other hand, I'm overwhelmed and also humbled. When Dr. Jigneshwar came to our residence in Khar, yes, when he was just starting, he asked me for an advice. And I did not even know this is what he's going to have for his year. As I said, it is a difficult year, but he has made it, I think, the most enjoyable because we didn't have to travel, we didn't have to pack, we didn't have to dress because what would be Asha wearing or what Rashmi, they are always so well dressed for these conferences. Anyway, so with this, may I now start with my oration? Chronobiology of menopause and translational impact on postmenopausal health. Why did I select this topic? That is a wonder. Well, a patient that I had seen very recently had a chief complaint and was referred by a cardiologist that what should she do for her thyroid antibody levels are high, though her TSH is absolutely normal, T3, T4 are normal. Doctor, but, and I would not go into those details. I have had an opportunity to discuss this with Dr. N.F. Shah, who from the time of 1980, late 80s, has been a great collaborator in terms of discussing difficult endocrine cases. And her other concern was, which is my concern also, I feel sometimes cosmetically discomforted because of my dental problem, which I can't solve during COVID-19. So this, her was a melasma, the pigment on her chin. And I have taken a informed consent from her to show this slide. This is her slide where you can see the melasma. And then my usual habit is not only to consult a right person, and I haven't gone yet to discuss with her, dermatologist, but also consult the literature. And the Clinical Cosmetic and Investigational Dermatology, a very favorite investigational dermatology journal of Dr. Ashok Vaidya, I consulted this 2020, wasn't satisfied. The cross references gave me a term melatonin, and that opened a new horizon of chronobiology. Also, partly, I would say that, and why I'm showing this is to show to Dr. N.F. Shah, we are already referred to, and also Dr. Vaidya. However, we have not mentioned that how did I enter in Hinduja Hospital? They were all 8 of them were from Hinduja Hospital. And what was I doing there? Well, Urvashi used to occasionally talk to me when I used to regularly visit on Thursdays Dr. N.F. Shah for discussing important cases. And also after these cases were discussed, we used to visit their library. And Vasu was an information scientist at excellent library. We enjoyed doing literature search related to the patient that we had seen and discussed together. And then who would then end up, Urvashi would be there in Asha's office. Dr. Asha Kapadia is a family friend's, at that time it was the youngest member that we knew. She had not yet also gone to the medical college. From that time I knew her. So it was like visiting a younger sister. So my presence at Hinduja Hospital was not new to anybody. And Urvashi caught me one day and said, let's start Indian Menopause Society. I said, well, that will be a very good way to start research in this area. And I said, no, look, I'm conducting a menopausal health clinic and our ladies need this. And there, with her dynamic leadership, I would say the entire credit goes to Urvashi. And thanks, Urvashi. I hope you're listening to me. Now, in mythology, or would you say history? Because some people did believe and do believe that Krishna lived and is a historical figure and not a mythological. I'm mighty time, the source of destruction that comes forth to annihilate the worlds. Is he active right now? Looks like that. In Greek mythology, the time is equally destructive. Well, the time is destructive in terms of aging processes that go on. And the regulation of chronobiology comes from a system, the entire system of photoneuroendocrine system and circadian timing. And melatonin is an important hormone, neurohormone. That is the area which I may expand a little. Melatonin, sleep, and multiple menopausal health issues. Is menopause a chronodisruptor then? Very important question. Do we have a way that if the aging is accelerated at menopause, if we consider this as a chronodisruptor, do we have means to do chrono enhancer? Chrono enhancer, reversing this process of acceleration, maybe some means to decelerate and give youth. Now, one of the favorite topics at MRC and Dr. Ashok Vaidya's is Kaya Kalp. We may very briefly touch upon that. In history, Franz Halberg, and I would recommend this reference that I have quoted here. Somebody asked him, why are you working in this area of chronobiology? He's the founder, he's the gave name to this branch, a field of biology that examines periodic phenomena in living organisms and their adaptation to solar and lunar related rhythms. Why are you working in this area? He was asked. I wish all my colleagues who are working in the lab listens to this, because he said that, he was working across transatlantic. He was I think in Europe, and then he had shifted to USA. But he could not confirm his own findings, and repeatedly, he could not confirm. Then he struck that, okay, the cells that he was working on were at different times that he was, and maybe the time was changing the results. And there was the birth of. I will not go into that great detail right now, because the 2017 Nobel Prize has gone to this trio who have given the molecular mechanisms controlling circadian rhythm. And very interesting, and it would be interesting for all of you who are fascinated by looking at Lajamnica chhod, the plant Mimosa pudica, and that is the circadian rhythms are there in plants. Photoneuroendocrine system is from retinal ganglion cells, which are photosensitive, passes on the impulse through retinohypothalamic tract, pineal gland. From PVC, it goes to this sympathetic nervous system and back to pineal gland. And the clock that we will see a little later, not only is in the master clock, which is the suprachiasmatic nuclei, but also it is in every cell of the body has a circadian clock and a biological sex. The timekeeper, and I may not pronounce very well, Zeitgeber, is of course melatonin, but there could be non-photic, that is sleep-wake cycle, physical activity, social time, meals. These could be also influencing the rhythms and sometimes misalign. And that misalignment is the major cause of modern society. And perhaps COVID-19 has changed. So our conferences are not so late, and they are not having late night dinners. And then also sleep deprivation following, and the next day hangovers. And thanks for that. Now, the very important point, that's why food entrained rhythms can supersede light entrained suprachiasmatic nuclei. This slide very briefly that I will say because we have very little time now. Melatonin secretion is controlled by way of multisynaptic neural pathway consisting of sympathetic innervations through SCN, preganglionic neurons and postganglionic fiber from superior cervical ganglion, and the tryptophan that is waiting in the pinealocytes through serotonin is the synthesis of melatonin occurs. Very important is that this molecular clock of the suprachiasmatic nucleus not only exists there, but it is there in the peripheral clocks are also there, and they utilize almost the same transcriptional regulatory mechanism, which is a negative feedback loop involving clock genes, transcription factors, clock and BML1 interacts and activate PER and CRY gene expression, and these proteins heterodimerize, translocate to the nucleus, and they inhibit clock BML1 induced gene expression, and thus again the cycle starts. So 24 hours cycle, this is the molecular clock of SCN and that of peripheral clocks. Very important is the circadian rhythm of melatonin. The sleep drive starts 2 hours before the onset of sleep. Many times we start feeling in the evening, we ignore, and I have ignored it more often than not, being the editor of 2 journals, chief editor of JMS and that of the Indian Practitioner. Sometimes really I have slept at 3 o'clock and spoiled my health. And I have been giving this advice to everybody that try to see that you align your daily behavior, the daily activity, because melatonin is the hormone of rest. It peaks between 2 and 4 in the night. It starts 2 hours prior to your usual time of going to bed. That is at about 8 o'clock or so, or 9 o'clock or so, and then it should rise and peak. So rightly it is said that if melatonin is the hormone of rest, cortisol is the hormone of activity. And here you can see that as the melatonin, in the next part of this slide, you see that as the melatonin levels are declining, the cortisol levels increasing, and the peak levels are in the morning hours of the day. And then as it declines, the other starts. It's an amazing, amazing way to regulate rest, food, feeding, and activity. These are the main behavioral components that are, if aligned with these circadian rhythms, then the health preservation and health maintenance remain. But the modern society does not allow that, particularly for those who are night shift workers and those who are involved in the air travels and also engaged in the services like pilots and the crew. These circadian time systems have also sex differences, and the sex differences in the circadian misalignment affects or effects on energy regulation differently for men and women. So men and women employed in the same organization for their night shift work may have a different effect. For example, it is much more that a woman would have less amount of the hunger separation, but more hunger drive. So leptin and ghrelin, perhaps, if studied in detail, maybe it must have been studied in great detail, which I haven't come across and I didn't go through, I didn't have time. But you can see in this slide and this graph that melatonin peak is much more amongst women as compared to men. And also it starts earlier. This sex differences has caused more problems for night shift workers of women to have obesity, hypertension, and other problems. Coming closer to our area of work, which we probably in all menopausal health clinic, we will have, I'm sure, number of women who would be complaining about that they have difficulty initiating sleep, that means sleep latency, then maintaining sleep, more fragmentation. Then again, after the fragmented sleep, they cannot go back to sleep, or there is an early awakening, or difficulty getting up in the morning. All this, and probably when we at Maitri Clinic, Dr. Jashi Joshi, and we all worked on our Maitri menopausal healthcare every once a month, we used to have this program, and we found that there were 30 to 30, in both the years, we had about 30% prevalence rates of insomnia. I would not want to say now insomnia when I have recorded in my CRF that a person has difficulty initiating. We may write down the details about this, but insomnia, and particularly in postmenopausal women, there will be chronic insomnia, and that chronic insomnia would be defined only when 3 nights in a week for 3 months, if they don't have appropriate sleep at night, then it can be defined as insomnia. And that's why I did not write down here as insomnia. And many before us had done, Dr. Usha Krishna, Ankleshwarya, and others. And even Rashmi had worked at IRR, now NIRH, and that was 20.6% who had sleep-related problems. Somebody may have had chronic insomnia also, and so I do not know. Associated daytime impairments in insomnia are fatigue, irritability, decreased memory and concentration, pervasive malaise affecting many aspects of daytime functioning. And fatigue was one of the very major complaints, and lack of energy were the 3 expressions amongst our perimenopausal and postmenopausal women. In search of good night's sleep, hormones, mind, movement, and breath. Extremely important, and this is a fantastic, I will not go into this reference. The reason why I have kept this reference, like what Rashmi said, the same way if these slides are also preserved, this would be of use to those who would want to work on this area of chronobiology and menopause. An investigator had very nicely shown that falling asleep, that is latency, was much more amongst perimenopausal women, not so much in postmenopausal women. And also their morning awakening difficulties were also in perimenopausal. So that when we say that it is a time, an opportune time, I have a feeling that 3 epochs in a female life, and that is puberty, pregnancy and lactation, and menopause, are 3 important areas. And as Dr. Jignesh Bhai is trying to now associate and be the advocacy from our side, would look into that these are the 3 important areas where physiological hyperinsulinemia occurs. With the physiological hyperinsulinemia, if it combines with the obesity and wrong lifestyle behaviors, then there are more chances that it gets converted into pathological hyperinsulinemia. And pathological hyperinsulinemia, obesity are the first things that may initiate the problem of, as we see a little later, obesity and metabolic syndrome, which again is highly prevalent in our country. Now this slide shows the circadian rhythms of melatonin secretion in perimenopausal women with or without insomnia. The solid line is that of a normal healthy sleep, women who had normal healthy sleep, and the other one shows the sleep disordered women. And you can see that their melatonin secretion mean was low. Not only that the mean melatonin secretion is low, but also its peak is delayed. So it is misaligned with the circadian rhythm. it comes much more that the rhythm comes in the morning hours. So the morning hours, they are feeling sleepy, and at night they don't sleep well. Once again, circadian rhythms of melatonin secretion in peri and postmenopausal women with insomnia. It was a very good article again in this journal, and I think that we have a great opportunity to work on the area of sleep, because I'm reminded of one of a very good um, work that has been done, that for about 16 healthy volunteers with good night's sleep of 8 hours was selected, and they were deprived sleep restricted. When they were sleep restricted for 4 hours and 6 hours, it was found that their appetite had changed. They ate more, and their food choice was wrong, as well as that they put on weight in this much time, and their insulin resistance occurred during 15 days of observation, which was also dose related. That means it was much more those who were allowed to sleep for 6 hours and those who were allowed to sleep for 4 hours. Those who were allowed to sleep for 4 hours have the highest deviation from their appetite as well as their weight and insulin. Coming to obesity, metabolic syndrome, and menopause, I was very happy that the person from Iran, recently writing in 2012, makes a mention of our article in JMH. Our article means our JMH article. Of course, it happened to be also from Maitrey program. This was where it was obesity, metabolic syndrome, and metabolic syndrome was in 55% in India. They had compared it with Chinese and the Brazil. And what I would like to make a mention here is that there was not much difference in our study between the premenopausal, perimenopausal, and the postmenopausal women. Metabolic syndrome as such is so highly prevalent that if we ever want to find out that does this start appearing at the time of menopause, perimenopausal years, and if we want to do, we would have to do longitudinal studies, because the cross-sectional studies will not allow us to see whether there is a beginning of all the factors that contribute to the development of the change in body composition, where the sarcopenia begins, visceral obesity starts, and there is definitely a gain in weight, or maybe the same weight, but the change in body composition has turned towards the metabolic ill health. And that's why I think that longitudinal studies would be very important. And here I may want to make a mention about what Dr. Jagdish said, that they would like to see that menopausal health clinics are started. My again plea would be that associate with teaching hospitals and the PG departments can have a special menopausal health clinic if possible, and if Indian Menopause Society can drive it, then they should have a common case record form with, of course, regional, whatever the special needs are there for the regional, that could be corrected. But if we have that, then what would happen? That today's IMS is mainly driven by the practitioners of OBGYN. And as Nishit Shah and Urvashi and Dr. Vaidya and others, and we all are mentioning, that if our multidisciplinary team from IMS would try to help establish menopausal health clinics as a specialty, super specialty within teaching hospitals, you will have a very natural way of a multidisciplinary team, because this multidisciplinary team would arise because it's a teaching hospital. Very easily it would happen. 1. 2, they will have an experience from IMS, and IMS representation should be there if the authorities allow. And if Dr. Jignesh Bhai succeeds, then at government teaching hospital, he could make a beginning in Ahmedabad. And what would happen then, that this such a experienced team, both for the exams as well as personal, a lot of experience exists, would be aware at a teaching hospital, and IMS will have a benefit of their entire ready-made multidiscipline, because these postgraduates would be rotating, the registrars could be rotating through this specialty clinic. This slide shows the melatonin at menopausal transition in postmenopausal women, which were divided into 3 groups. A group that had no change in appetite or weight, a group that had increased appetite and weight, and also there is a one who was not menopausal and normal. And you can see here melatonin levels are lower in both the no change appetite and no change weight group, as well as, but the much more was in those who were obese and had an increased appetite. So melatonin levels are showing that the menopause definitely is initiated the aging process in an accelerated way so far as the chronobiology would concern. And yeah, 1 second. Yeah, so decrease in melatonin precedes FSH hormone increase during perimenopause. So even before this, so hypothalamic aging, somebody has written, I don't know to what extent it has been looked into in a great way, but hypothalamic aging starts earlier. A very nice article on menopause and the metabolic syndrome by Jensen, who shows that the final menstrual period here represented as 0, and the minus are the peri and premenopausal years, and the postmenopausal years are the plus sign, and how obesity and metabolic syndrome, here it is particularly metabolic syndrome, increases with the march of menopause into peri to postmenopause. But the prevalence is much more, particularly if they had associated sleep-related problems and insomnia. Many times, while working on sleep as an area of our interest at MRCKHS, Dr. Shobha Udupi, a great neuroscientist in nutrition, her students and we have worked together on sleep in the students at the various schools, both the government aided schools and the more privileged private schools. And we find that throughout our children are deprived of sleep, or may not be, their total sleep hours may be 7. So if you take only the history of number of hours, then they are, but they sleep at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock at night. And a large number are like this. Some because of the academic compulsion, some because now COVID-19 is not allowing them, it has become perhaps much more. So the sleep deprivation and sleep debt that at our institute that we are working on, and if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Meenashri had presented this in Pune on sleep problems in menopausal women, and she got the first prize in Pune when Jyoti Uni had organized that. Lifestyle factors and chrono disruptors. Mismatch of biological clock governed by Earth's rotation and social clock generated by modern society adversely impact to endogenous circadian rhythms regulating neuroendocrine rhythm and metabolic functions. And I think that if we could correct this in our history, while in a menopausal health clinic, it should be devoted that this history taking, which is so important. And the highlight of the Maitreyi program was that we had from the community a person who came to us, and she was MA in psychology. And she got so interested that she took a course in definitely counseling. So she was a trained counselor. She was not like we have, okay, over a period of time, all physicians become counselors, but without their formal training in counseling. And this Pratibha Ben Mehta of our Maitreyi program took that course, she passed that, and then she was able to, at every program that we conducted once a month, she would be there to talk to these women and find out and shift out those who had absolutely healthy family life, etc., and those who needed definitely counseling, from those who had premorbid personalities which gets tilted during menopausal hormonal storms or menopausal syndrome, which can be really stormy during that period. If they're premorbid personality and they need, she used to use the Hamilton depressions or modified for menopause and quality of life score. And there what she did was that then she will point out to we physicians that please see that she is referred to a psychiatrist, or at least informed to the family members that she's in a need of that. So I think that these are the most important component of organizing a program which has also a periodic clinic, which has periodicity is known, how you have to use a standardized, I hope I'm in time, or whenever you want to tell me if the time is over. Jignesh, why? It's okay, can I go on for a few more slides? Okay, this is very important. You see here that one which is the highest showing the difficulty falling asleep, that green bar, that is from surgical menopausal group. And the question is asked that surgical menopausal group has anything to do with, does menopause accelerate the biological aging? And they have found that surgical menopause associated with increased epigenetic age of blood. So the biological aging is also perhaps easily done. I don't know how accurate, but it is good for monitoring on Emron. Those machines for the body composition that we use regularly for height, weight, visceral fat, and skeletal muscle, there they also give you a biological age. Now, it is a software which must have been used and calculated for the other ethnic group or maybe Western, but it's okay. For your chronological age, you say that X is your biological age. When you have been given intervention of lifestyle or any other pharmacological intervention, then that would be very useful. So when you organize menopausal clinics, and you want to write down what all they should be equipped with, in this you should see that at least such machines are which are portable and which are also giving you also biological age, can monitor at least the follow-up of the intervention. MHT is inversely associated with the epigenetic age acceleration, and that is through buccal epithelium that they had done. And yes, it's very well known, but we do know, and we have had several number of webinars that both of them had organized on the MHT, which is a very valuable tool if properly utilized for a contraindications ruled out, and the monitoring is also done properly. And okay, menopause and insomnia together speed up biological aging. Now coming to something that I thought I was also waiting for, because I wanted to see that for that patient of melasma, I wanted to see that whether I would be able to get anything in terms of the local melatonin, that is for the skin, and also the oral or systemic. And there was only one single article, so I do not know, that has limited at least in my understanding. I have to go back to my dermatologist friend who is also very much oriented towards what is developing and what is possible. Now, FDA in USA, melatonin is a dietary supplement, but in some parts of Europe, it is considered that it requires the prescription from a doctor. And in India, I was not aware because I have used very limited way. I've used melatonin. I've used it in a one Turner syndrome patient when I started with the pivotal development, gave smallest amount of estrogen, and next few days she had totally lost her sleep. And to her, I have given melatonin, and to one menopausal woman, I have given melatonin, who also was not ready to use MHD, which would have been more appropriate to use. It has a very short half-life, and that's why it has limited its use, and its sustained release formulations have also been available. Melatonin products vary from fast release to sustained release formulation. Dosage is used in clinical trials has ranged widely with typical dosage of 0.1 to 10 milligram. Usually it is in 1 milligram and 3 milligram. In Europe, what is most available is 2 milligram. We do get in our country 3 milligram once. It should be administered 30 minutes to 2 hours before bedtime. No serious side effect except dizziness, headaches, nausea, and drowsiness. Clinically and methodologically, the work has been so in a heterogeneous populations that this area is open for us to work on along with those who are working in sleep. Now there are so many sleep clinics, and sleep restoration improves diabetes, metabolic syndrome is very well known. And I think we should associate ourselves, and maybe in one of the webinars, you may invite those who are working on and those who have sleep clinics, and the chest specialists particularly. Melatonin in private symptoms in menopausal women, still I did find out one where I thought that at least let me see what has been the difference, which is a double-blind placebo-controlled trial. And you can see that the score that was 35 goes to 17 at the end of 3 months, while in placebo it is at 24. So probably if you have much more experience that we would develop in this area, are women who have sleep related problems would be helped. And that's why what has come out is also there is a need for its analogs, which has been like Remilton, agomelatine, and my daughter, who is a neuroscientist and has worked on stress, is very familiar in pharmacology of this area. And she says that this is more an antidepressant than, and perhaps to a greater extent, this has been used in Europe, while the other one is much more used in USA. Yeah, in a prospective trial, and I don't know if I'm spelling right, I mean, I am pronouncing right, Remilton, 8 milligram per day to 20 healthy peri and post-vimal women. This was a 6 weeks trial. And here also you can see sleep latency, total sleep time, and the WASO score, sleep efficiency, nighttime awakenings, and hot flushes. It does, in melatonin also, those few trials that I've come across also helps in their mood swings as the sleep improves, and even the hot flushes. However, in my trying to see when I wanted to give to my patient of menopausal age, and I did give melatonin for her sleep, the question came to me that whether hot flushes are held to the same extent. Though this slide shows that it is helped, I feel that it may not be. And again, this is an area for research, that those who are having hot flushes and night sweats, whether, and also sleep problems, is it sleep problem and isolated problem, which is related to, of course, menopause, but not necessarily related to night sweats, whether drugs that are more oriented towards the sleep restoration would also help in hot flushes. Of course, MHD is best, it will take care of both. Now, melatonin micronutrients osteopenia treatment study, Dr. Vaidya has been mentioning to me many a times that don't forget the bone also, and bone homeostasis, metabolism, is regulated by SCN. There is a double-blind RCT of nightly melatonin, strontium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2. And this MSDK in postmenopausal osteopenic women, it was given along with the placebo as a double-blind. Increased BMD was in lumbar spine, and left femoral neck. They had seen also the bone turnover markers were showing that there was an increase in osteoblastogenesis and there was a decrease in osteoclastogenesis. Recently, we had an opportunity to work with Dr. Meeta Singh and from our research center, Dr. Ashwini Kumar Raut and ourselves, we all worked with her. And that was an excellent experience of 1 year study of DCSU. So the plant-based and if Dr. Shubhadeep is listening to me right now, I would say that we need to look at the melatonin contents because plants, both medicinal plants and edible, have high content of melatonin. And so we need to look at whether that has any relevance for interventions for such problems of insomnia. Is melatonin safe for long-term use? Because the one who had done that MOTS and MOPS trial for the bone, melatonin for bone health in osteopenic women and osteoporosis, they also wondered whether it would have any hangover because it has to be given for a longer period. So they had a 1 year trial and the effect of melatonin treatment on postural stability, muscle strength, and quality of life and sleep in postmenopausal women was also studied in randomized controlled trial because it's extremely important that you have to give it for a long period. We are not giving it for just restoring sleep for 8 days or so. And when you do that, then whether it has any side effects that may cause the hangover and the related problems. And that's why when they gave to both 1 or 3 milligram, it was safe to use in postmenopausal women with osteopenia. There is no longer, there is any hangover effect causing any reduction in balance and muscle function or quality of life in women with poor quality sleep. Small doses of melatonin tended towards improving quality of life also. Now I come to the last slide and an area which is of, I think, very important to anybody who wants to work on aging. And when I was working on frailty, and I gave one keynote address at one of our IMS meeting on frailty, if you recall, and a woman who is pre-frail should be brought to normal and a frail woman could be brought back to, and I had given a talk at, I think, Mumbai on obesitic sarcopenia. So obesity, osteoporosis and sarcopenia, this triad go together. And if we can correct this, it would be extremely important that when we focus on osteoporosis, we should not forget about sarcopenia. So when I was working on that, and I happened to go to a bookstore and I picked up the book, then that book was on aging and those who had lived beyond 100 years. And they found that who lived beyond 100 years or longevity was where. One thing was genetic component, that they had longevity in their, they had lost their sometimes spouse because they didn't belong and had the same genetic inheritance. And that's why they had immense capacity to live beyond even their spouse going away because they had retained interest in life, they had purpose in life. And most important was physical activity. Physical activity, I would say that I'll underline. Physical activity extremely important even for the restoration of the misalignments that are caused by the modern life. So physical activity extremely important. In that I have picked up this, and Dr. Vaidya has used it many times. This slide, which is that the pinealectomy was done and the pineal transplantation was done from young to the old and old to the young, and the reversal of the aging had occurred. So how important it is. And a story written which is available in Google about the Anantamurti, and biography of Tapaswi Maharaj has been written by advocate, if I'm not forgotten, High Court judge, by High Court judge, and where he lived for 165 years. 186, okay, very long. So improvements in health span would be our motto, not only the lifespan. Improvements in health span and potential anti-aging effects in the absence of adverse effects on quality of life should be our motto. And this happens with a calorie restriction also. Calorie restriction does enhance lifespan if it's a nutritionally balanced calorie restriction. With this, I think that last night I was preparing these slides and this was the last slide. So I might have missed on thank you, but I'll acknowledge the colleagues from my Kasturba Health Society who are represented here. You can see Dr. Jayashree Joshi, Dr. Raut, Dr. Shubha Udupi, Dr. Amonkar, and all youngsters here who are great. One of them just received, two of them received their PhD, and each one of it is so dear to us. But it is a multi-system team, not only multidisciplinary team. And that's why I think there is a need for us to go to even Ayurvedic teaching hospitals to make our presence felt and to understand them and make their presence felt in our understanding of Ayurveda. So with these words, I would thank Dr. Jignesh Shah and Dr. Rita Shah for this opportunity for me to have the celebration like this. And you can see OBGYN colleagues must be recognizing Dr. Deepak Dave, who is with us also. And of course, Dr. Jayashree Joshi is here. With all this, I sincerely thank I was really thinking that would I ever be able to prepare, because right now we have to conduct our research that continues at MRC in these difficult circumstances. So with this, since you have done such wonderful job, and many thanks, and I'm not able to thank everyone here, but I'm sure that both Dr. Anita and Dr. Jignesh Bhai will express this on my behalf to everyone. Thank you so much.
So thank you very much, Madam, for excellent oration regarding this new concept of melatonin in the aging and its effect on postmenopausal health. I have heard that many yogasanas like Brahmari and Sambhavi Mudra, they helps in regulating the pineal gland and regulates the melatonin secretion. Is it true?
Well, I think that complete lifestyle factors, and I usually consider in lifestyle factors sleep, stress management, nutrition, physical activity. And all this, when combined together in the healthiest possible, that is Swastha as described in Ayurveda, probably reverses. There are articles, number of articles are there. However, I think that if we want to be very sure about the evidence base, then we have to create proper projects related to, because even melatonin, what time you're collecting and where you are talking about. Is it the blood? Is it from the buccal epithelium? That is saliva. It depends, all depends on that. So I think that a kind of a collaboration with basic scientists when it comes to that simultaneously. You know what interested me on that MODS trial was that they had also done in animals the same thing. So in vitro, in vivo, and clinical experience, when these three can combine together, and that's why I was saying that IMS can open up to those in India who are working in reproductive aging, ovarian aging, and things like that. That also would help quite a lot. Not necessarily that everybody has to do this. There are so many things. On one hand, we say that we must reach out to family physicians and to the community people. Particularly community, as was mentioned about the husbands, would understand better if they learn about menopause health issues. And Kamal Hazare made a mention of that. So that's true. According to your aptitude, one would want to gravitate into a meaningful activity in this area of menopausal health.
Thank you, Madam. Now we will go for citation. Paresh. Paresh, are you there?
Sir. Yes, sir.
Madam, please stop sharing your presentation.
Pardon?
Stop sharing.
Stop sharing the screen.
Yes, yes. Within. I have to stop, so I'll just end show and I close here only.
No,
Is
you have, yes.
Yes, done.
Yes.
Paresh,
Paresh.
citation. Before that, yes. So this is the citation, Indian Menopause Society celebrating Silver Jubilee year 2020. First Silver Jubilee oration is awarded to Dr. Rama Vaidya, founder president of Indian Menopause Society, on the topic Chronobiology of Menopause, Transitional Impact on Postmenopausal Health on October 18, 2020 Sunday on World Menopause Day by Dr. Jignesh Shah, President, and Dr. Anita Shah, Honorary Secretary of Indian Menopause Society. So, Madam, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. It was a great opportunity for me to learn.
Thank you, Madam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rama, Madam. It was a really excellent oration. All of us must have enjoyed very nicely. And we are following the slogan what you have given to us from IMS: fit at 40, strong at 60, independent at 80. And with the passage of time, we are elaborating it to fit at 40, fancy at 50, strong at 60, sexy at 70, independent at 80, naughty at 90, and healthy at 100. So we are just spreading awareness regarding better quality of life, how we can give to the midlife woman, and we are following your footsteps very, very precisely.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.